Hey, you guys. Welcome. Magdalena here today. Forgot to fix my mic. I want to talk about something that just happened 2 days ago regarding the Nestle takeover of a buyout of Pure Encapsulations, Douglas Labs, and Designs for Health, which is an interesting development, to say the least. But it also triggered a lot of thoughts in my own, in my world, in my business, and which also coincides with me releasing our own line of supplements. You might have heard me talk about that. And so I wrote an article about that, and I want to share with you because there's some things that I want to kind of talk about it and not just, leave it in an article that some of you may or may not read. So I want to help you, first of all, get a lot of clarity of what's considered a good supplement, especially now where there's so much of marketing that's going on. And then you have these takeovers that happen. And so I think it's really important to really identify, kind of figure out and ask yourself, what is really important? Like, what do I need to look for in the supplements? And going away from the whole marketing part. So like, I always call it going away from the front of the label to really looking at the back of the label to see the truth of what's going on behind the scenes. So to help you out with this, I want to talk about first, the first rule of evaluating supplements is going to be about the ownership of the company. Who owns the company? And interestingly, this was triggered by the fact that Nestle just bought over, like I said, these 3 iconic supplement brands. And so many of you have asked us, so now what? What do I do, right? Now, is this posing a danger? Is there going to be, are they going to be reformulating the supplements? And the answer is most likely yes, because historically that's what's been happening. And I want to give you a bit of context here, so it's not coming from some place of conspiracy, because I'm never about that, but it's just from sheer experience, but also knowing what the industry looks like with other takeovers like that. So let me talk first about Nestle as a company. Some of you may or may not know about the thing that happened in the 1970s when Nestle, with all their baby milk formula, went to Africa. And basically what happened was they were promoting it to the very poor parts of Africa, giving the mothers free samples of powdered milk. And all of them were given out by girls, promotion girls who were dressed as nurses, right? And that was their uniform. And so the mother would be taking will take that, that supplement or the formula milk, and more so because of the whole idea that they position the milk as being the modern world, the modern women's way of being, and saying to the women, a lot of these women came from African countries that were very impoverished and went through war, saying that you are not probably nutritionally strong, to produce milk that is as effective as the formula. So these mothers bought that piece, and they ended up giving it to their children. But as you probably know, when you use external sources, you don't use your own breast to produce milk, that milk dries up. And so when the free samples ran out, these mothers were then asked to purchase the product, which costed about $7 a week. For you and I mean, it's a joke, right? Poor African countries, people earn their $1 a day. And so these mothers were left with no resources to buy that milk, and whatever little milk they could buy for that infant, they will dilute it oftentimes with contaminated water. And so that itself is, the estimation is that Nestle has caused 1 million deaths or severe malnutrition. The deaths resulted from malnutrition or just pure death of the children, because these mothers didn't realize that you're not supposed to dilute it, not because it's contamination with water only, but also because these kids need this amount of nutrients. And so that was, it's heartbreaking. It's I'm tearing up even just thinking about it, like something like that could happen. And so that was when a lot of things got put into motion. There's actually laws now, how you're allowed to promote, what you're allowed to say and not to say when it comes to formula milk. But anyway, so that's about formula milk. And so you would have thought that happened in 1970s, 1980s, it kind of got tapped down. And you think like, well, we're good, right? Like these kind of things shouldn't be happening anymore. Well, interestingly, something that you don't know maybe about my past, and I just realized I've never really shared this because there was no opportunity to do so. And that is, many of you probably know I used to work in advertising, and my last job was in Seattle. my manager and I didn't get along. And so he was then looking for a global opportunity for me to basically get rid of me from the team, right? And which is kind of ironic because the company paid like $20,000 to send me across, and I was like a superstar in Asia, and here I didn't get along with him. So anyway, so he connected me with our office in Paris in order to interview for a job with Nestle. I didn't know what it was about, exactly which product. And he said, just try it. For all you know, you could live in Paris. And I thought, actually, it doesn't sound as fun as it could be. I love a holiday in Paris, a romantic vacation in Paris, not necessarily to live in Paris. But anyway, I got on the phone with the guy who was running the advertising agency that services Nestle. And then the can of worms, so to speak, opened up. And he said, the job is to work on formula milk, working in countries in Southeast Asia, such as Cambodia, Myanmar, Vietnam, rural areas. And I thought to myself, and he says, you are a perfect candidate for that because you've worked on Johnson & Johnson, so you understand the mother-baby connection. I used to do strategic planning for Johnson. You understand Asia, because I grew up in Asia. I spent 22 years of my life living in Asia. Much of it was in Southeast Asia. And, and so I was a perfect fit in their opinion, right? And, as much as for those of you who work in a corporate world, you know that there are certain things you cannot say, and, you're going to be politically correct and somewhat diplomatic, right? I didn't give a damn. I listened to what he had to say, and I said to him, I was not a breastfed baby because my mother exactly bought the story exactly the way you're spinning it. And I've been having all these health problems with my sister, who's 2 years younger, was breastfed, and she didn't have any allergies, autoimmune problems, skin conditions, gut issues. I had it ever since I was an infant. My sister didn't have any of that. And so I said this to him, and he said, well, it's scientifically proven that formula milk is richer than mother's milk. And, at that point, you're in that moment of just rage. Anyway, needless to say, I declined the job. And so, this was just 9 years ago and after that, I actually got fired from my job, and then I set up my own company. Best thing ever, right? Good story. Although going through that is never easy, right? So, so this is, you might think like, well, that's what Nestle did in 1970s. So, but guess what? Like just 9 years ago, they're still doing the same old shit. They're just doing it more within certain boundaries, but they're still going to be spinning the same old story to the same people who are uneducated, who aspire to be westernized, et cetera, et cetera. So, so do I trust companies like Nestle? Absolutely not. Are they going to reformulate? That's the biggest question now concerning you as the consumer. And I'm wondering how many of you here are actually buying supplements from Pure Encapsulations or Douglas Labs or Garden of Life. I know many of you posted last night that you did. So the interesting thing is, I think the biggest question is, will they reformulate? And so when you look at the history of supplements in the market, like for example, I was just talking to my industry friends, Metagenics, right? Used to be a great brand. A few years ago, they got bought over by Amway, got completely reformulated. That was the first thing that they did. They started reformulating the products. Why? To increase the profit margin. You have to remember the companies like Nestle or Amway are there to, their first responsibility is to the shareholders to increase their value and to keep them happy, right? And increase their value. And so, and it's not to you as a consumer to keep you healthy. That's the bottom line of it all, right? So, would Nestle reformulate? I mean, who knows? I mean, I have no guarantees for that, but I can tell you that reading the press releases, it looks like a lot of their health products have been failing, and so they bought over this company, and they probably would want to be, using that to offset the profit losses the losses they had from other companies. That makes total financial sense from a financial perspective, not from a health perspective. I used to work for, also L'Oreal used to be my client when I was living in Asia. And many of you might have heard me talk about it, like how I was so excited. I wasn't excited about L'Oreal because, that's a crap product. But L'Oreal actually owns a lot of companies, something that most consumers don't know. Like, for example, did you know that Body Shop is owned by L'Oreal? did you know that Kiehl's, which is one of the most iconic New York brands that started off in the East Village, high efficacy, set up by a family of pharmacists, they would send out people to the Himalayas for expeditions, and they'll let them use their skincare products, and these people come back and say, I didn't have any issues with my skin because of the protection I got from the product. So Kiehl's was this beautiful, I emphasize the word was this beautiful brand. And and so when I first got to work on the brand, I was so excited, right? Because it was like one of my favorite brands. And Body Shop, for those of you who, you are in my age group, you probably know Anita Roddick was the founder of Body Shop. It was just such a mission-based business of, sourcing, using products in parts of the world where there are women communities and communes and cooperatives where the sale of the product will help. Well, she will source the produce, right, from these, like, for example, I remember Bergamot she would buy it in Sicily from very poor parts of Sicily, even though it's Italy. Sicily is actually very poor, one of the poorest parts of Europe. And so she would develop a whole product line to buy Bergamot from there. And that was the mission. I mean, I don't need to tell you, you walk into Body Shop today, what does it look like? It looks like a candy store. It smells terrible. It smells so toxic. But Kiehl's was the brand I worked on. And I was so excited when they first put me on the brand. And then I'll never forget how I got a text message from my friend, and she said to me, have you seen the ingredients in the deodorants? And I remember rushing down the office, going to the nearest Kiehl's store I could find, and I turned the label around, and all their deodorants were full of aluminum. It's just like everything you don't want in skincare products. I don't want to talk about skincare products today, but everything you don't want, the phthalates, the BPAs, all the different binders and tube fillers, right? It was there. And so did they bastardize the brand? Absolutely. Did they tell people they are reformulating anything? Of course not. And so this is my fear that the same thing is going to happen with people like Pure, who I'm sharing this information with you, but how many health sources have you seen that actually talk about this? Not many. And they did it on purpose because the labeling is going to stay the same. The product price is going to stay the same. Distribution is going to stay the same, maybe become broader, right? So as a consumer, you go to Amazon, you buy it, it looks the same. You don't know that the owners have changed. You trust the brand. You've established the trust in the product. It has worked for you in the past. And so you continue buying it, and not just this product, but all the other products from this brand because you trust it. But things happen in the back where that's where they get you, right? That's why in evaluating supplements, the first big thing I want to say is look at the ownership of the company. Find out who owns the supplement company. So ironically, a lot of people ask, if Pure is now going to be owned by Nestle, what do I do? And so I think you have a couple of options. One is you can stock up a little, right? There's an expiration date, so there's only so much you can stock up. Number two that you can do is start looking at other clean brands that are owned by independent owners, fairly small companies who have very responsible sourcing. And so, it is in some ways self-serving, but I want to just, me, I'm all about quality. And we have our own brand of supplements just been launched, right? And so it's called Hormone Balance Nutritionals. Interesting thing about us, about supplement world is that there are actually few raw material manufacturers that good brands go to. And guess what? Our supplements use the same suppliers and raw material sellers as what Pure has been using. So Pure, great brand. This is the reason why I've decided to go with something really super clean, is because of the raw materials coming from the same sources. Many of them are coming from the same sources as Pure. So that's the first thing you want to look at is ownership. Number two is certification. What kind of certifications do the supplement company have? And there's a couple of really good ones. One is called let me just pull out my little list here. It's called NSF, and that is given out I'm talking about everything I'm talking about here is United States, right? When it comes to certifications, it's a certification that's given to make sure that what the manufacturer says is on the label is also is actually in the product itself. So it's done on the product testing, but also they evaluate toxicity levels in pesticides, herbicides, If a company says it's a non-GMO, they evaluate that as well. So really great certification to have. The third thing to look into when it comes to evaluating your supplements is what is it free of? You always want to make sure the supplements are free of gluten, soy, dairy, right? A lot of them are using milk particles in order to, whether it's a filler, whether it's a stabilizer. You want to get it, if you know, especially if you are sensitive to things like, for example, corn, you definitely want it to be without any corn, right? And whatever else. I also like the supplements to be without yeast, without any colors, without binders, without fillers. Okay, I'll talk about binders and fillers in just a second. But the interesting thing is that, so like, for example, our supplements are all free of all the things that I mentioned. And there is no colors used in any of them, right? So that's the third one. The fourth thing you want to look into is binders and fillers. You know, the truth is that if the supplement is really good quality, it should be just filled with the supplement itself, and there's no need for bulking things up. Consumer research has shown that whenever a pill is bigger, there is an impression that we have that it's going to have a high efficacy. It's just a psychological thing. And so if you're catching yourself thinking that way, then just get over that, because that's not a good indication of your supplements. You know, you do not want to be seeing any fillers and binders in your products. Number 5 rule to use is price. You know, for anyone who goes on Amazon, and we have an article actually that's being developed right now about how do you know if you're buying fake supplements, because I've just discovered that that is a huge issue. If you know, let's say finding a supplement you used to buy for $30 for a bottle and you're finding it now for $12, right, on Amazon, that's not a reason to celebrate or congratulate yourself that you found a really good deal, right? Because it is either close to expiration, and a lot of Chinese companies are actually doing that. They're buying up stock that is about to expire for almost nothing, and then they resell that on Amazon and other sources. So you gotta be careful with that kind of stuff. Expiration is one thing. The other thing is that happens is, you know, you gotta look out for is, yeah, so price, yeah. So, you know, is that within the range or not that should be costing? Good supplements will never be cheap, okay? Same as essential oils. Like people tell me they bought a bottle of, you know, of lavender for $5. I mean, that you're just cheating yourself. So, so price, you know, if something is costing within $30, you might want to change brands. You want to look at different forms of for example, magnesium, since I'm on that supplement, but the range should always be about the same. Why? Because like I said, the raw material suppliers are very few in this country, and they maintain the same price. And so it's up to the manufacturer, like Pure, for example, like us, how much margin we want to put on it, right? But the cost is going to be there anyway. So it cannot cost $12 for something that, for example, costed $30. The sixth issue is what I call other factors. And so the other factors will be a couple of things you want to look at that I feel are always very good giveaways to see whether the product is good quality or not. So the first one would be look at the quality. What's the type of magnesium that the manufacturer is using? So for example, in our case, let me see, we have the product called Magnesium Replenish. It's right here, Magnesium Replenish. So Magnesium Replenish, for example, in our case, we're using glycinate. And for those of you who've watched my talks before about magnesium and how important it is for hormones, magnesium glycinate is my favorite form. There's other forms like that's acceptable, citrate, though you may not agree with that because it might give you diarrhea, but it's a pretty good absorbable. When I say good, right, let me just define good. We are talking about doing no harm, causing inflammation in your body, but also with a high availability of actually the magnesium in the product. So glycinate and malate are the two highest for absorbability. The problem with malate is that it's great for like you have chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia or, you know, or lupus because it really helps with energy, but you don't ever want to do malate at night. I actually learned it the hard way when I was doing magnesium malate at night thinking that's going to help me. And then I discovered that actually can be stimulating. And I was like, oh, no wonder I couldn't sleep for 2 weeks, you know? So that was a big lesson. So glycinate and malate citrate are the two acceptable forms. So the dead giveaway is that if you look at your bottle and you look at and you see magnesium oxide, that's a cheap magnesium they should never use. And a lot of the MLM, multi-level marketing companies, also known as MLMs, will be using magnesium oxide. What do you see on the front cover? Best quality, best observability, right? Research, this and that. Those are all just plain words, would mean nothing. You look at the back, it says oxide. That's a big one to say no to. Another one that's really interesting is B vitamins. So we also carry B vitamins. We call it a B maximus. I like that word maximus, right? It's like, I think it is coming from one of them Roman Empire names. So the form that you want to look at that's really important is the methylated form of vitamin B. Why? Because there's an estimate that about 38% of people have a methylation issue. If you add those ones who have the single mutation, then the pool is probably as big as 60%. And so it is best to get them in a methylated form. So the methylated form, you want to have it is 3 of them, B12. And so how do you know is because you will see on the label that it comes in a form of methylcobalamin. So that will be the form you want is the methylated form. So methylcobalamin, and then you also want to have the methylated form is the B6. B6, you guys, is huge for progesterone production, by the way, and all sorts of different brain functions, including it's a precursor for serotonin. And then we also want to have it in a folate. So B9, also known as folate. Want to be in a folate form and never folic acid. So this is how you know that a company is really serious about quality or not. And our vitamin B is all in a methylated form. So that's that. Let's see what else. Another giveaway that's I think really interesting is if a company is using titanium oxide. It was pretty often used as a filler, titanium oxide. And it turns out that the latest research shows that titanium oxide is actually being connected to being a carcinogenic, right? So we don't want that in any of our products. The other thing is that it's interesting is fish oil. So fish oil, most of the time, and we've got beautiful fish oil as well we have in our line. The fish oil is this comes, by the way, in this is called the essential omegas, and we've got the DHA and EPA both. Then the question is where is it coming from? And typically that's not really disclosed. Is you've got to ask the manufacturer where this is coming from. So me being me, and I always wanted to know like where this is coming from and what am I going to be representing and putting my name behind. So it turns out that where we're getting that oil from is from fish that's fished in Norway and in Iceland. That's some of the cleanest waters you can find. Also cold water fish, really important. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, well the other thing that we want to, it's the question to ask what kind of solvents were used in order to extract oils, right? And hexagon, for example, is one of the very common substances. Again, you're never going to find it on the label itself, but it's a question that, if you really want to be a little detective, you might want to call the company and ask them if they use hexagon to extract oils from the product. So let's see what else. The last one to look at is vitamin E, which is also kind of interesting. Vitamin E is most often extracted from soy. So for those of you who are really, really sensitive to soy, vitamin E, you want to look for a product that, let's say, if you want to be adding vitamin E to the equation, which by the way, we have a whole bundle kit that is for progesterone boosting, and vitamin E together with zinc are one of the are the most two important vitamin and a mineral in progesterone production. So what happens with vitamin E is that if it is extracted from soy, you want to make sure that's put through a process that refines the vitamin E, the oil, so much so that there is no protein that is found of soy in the vitamin E itself. And so this is the reason why our vitamin E is completely soy-free, is because it's been refined so much so that you do not find soy in it, okay? So just to wrap this up, looking at who owns the company, looking at the certifications, like for example, we've got the, oh, I forgot to talk about the GMP. So there is a GMP certification. This is basically a certification that evaluates their manufacturing facility. Non-GMO, you know, is another great one, right? And we also do have the NSF certification too. You want to look at what is it free of. That's number 3. Number 4 has got no binders and fillers. Number 5 is got to be reasonably priced, as it not being too cheap. And the other ones I talked about is, to me, the magnesium and the vitamin Bs, it's typically the first thing I do when I evaluate supplements. I pick it up, would be like, not methylated form. They don't really cater to people who truly are sick. And many people who do have hormonal problems, who do have autoimmune problems, we have a higher percentage of people, we have a higher percentage of those who have methylation problems than not. And don't obsess about it that you've got to go and get your, you know, 23andMe done, your genes tested to find out if you do have the mutation or not. Just assume that you do, and just get things in a methylated form is going to be, you're not, you know, compromising anything by getting them in a methylated form. Okay. So I hope this was helpful. Let me just take a quick look, because I'm on an interface that doesn't really allow me to, let me just go over to my Facebook page and see what questions have come in, and then I can answer them right away. I hope you guys found this helpful. I'm going to be talking about the first pack that we have, which is called the kit, Adrenal Support Kit, and what's in it. I'm going to do a Facebook Live tomorrow. And then guess what? After that, I'm going to be taking some time off for 3 weeks. So actually from tomorrow, from 2 o'clock onwards, I am taking off for 3 weeks. Isn't that cool? I actually need to really get my, you know, it's been a big year, right? Doing the book, launching the herbal program, launching the supplement line. It's a lot to take on. And so it's time to rejuvenate myself and recuperate a little bit. I'm going to this beautiful retreat in Costa Rica, meditation, you cook your own food, organic food that's grown locally, all of that good stuff. And I'm going to be back on the first week of January. So let's see. Anita is saying amazing video. Thank you. What is your company? It's called Hormone Balance Nutritional, Sandra. So Sandra, stay tuned. Follow my page, and we're going to be posting a little bit more about it. So let's see. Helen is saying fish oil. You don't have a vegan source of that. No, we don't, because it's just not as effective. So I just leave it at that. And I don't really cater to vegans, vegetarians, because I don't find that the healthiest way of living. I do believe that 80–90% of our sources should come from plants, but I haven't really met that many healthy vegetarians, to be perfectly honest. So I'm sorry to disappoint you on that one if you're a vegetarian. Okay, cool. So I don't see that many more questions. Let me just take a quick look one more time. And I will see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to be talking about our adrenal kit, the adrenal TLC product that we have, which is pretty awesome. I'm going to tell you what's in it, together with a couple of other things, and it comes as a kit. So the one thing I really want to say and say to you guys is, I would really appreciate any form of support in supporting our supplement line. It's one of the cleanest supplement lines that I could put together. Like I said, the sources are very similar to, actually the raw material sources are same in many products as Pure Encapsulations has been using. So, you know, it's something that I really, my team and I would really appreciate the support of Hormone Balance Nutritionals, my new supplement line. Okay, you guys have a great one, and I'll see you tomorrow.